My name's Philip, as you know, Philip Dodd, and I'm the co-leader. We have two leaders at the moment in the little area that I work in, which is the education and outreach. So the Lost Food Project has been going for about 4 years, and at the moment it's divided into lots of different areas. So I'm a volunteer. 95% of our people who work with us are volunteers. We just have, I think, 5 people who are not volunteers who get paid a small wage. And that's our general manager and our warehouse manager, a person who does administrative work for us, and 2 drivers. So everybody else is a volunteer. So everybody on the education team is a volunteer. And we have probably about 8 people who come and go in the education team. And the role of the education team is to spread awareness about food waste, about the effect of food waste on the environment, and about feeding the hungry. So we go to high schools, primary schools, even as young as kindergarten age, all the way up through to university people like yourself. And we information about these issues and about what the Lost Food Project does as one way of tackling these issues. And then we also have events as well. So for instance, we might have a booth. So part of our team, part of the work I do as one of the leaders on the team is to do interviews like this, to give presentations. So we have PowerPoint slides where we can go in and we can do a presentation with a group of school students or a group of university students. We can share information, we can have questions and answers. With the younger kids, we can do little quizzes and food tasting activities. So part of my role is to run those sessions, to give those presentations, to organize the resources that we need. So at the moment we have an intern who is a university student. She's come from the Netherlands. She was here in Malaysia for a couple of months, and now she's gone back to the Netherlands because of the lockdown. But I'm still working with her, and we're developing some of our resources. So at the moment, we've come up with some new PowerPoint resources. We're also developing some lesson plans that we can share with teachers that they can run on their own with their students to do with environmental issues, food waste issues, feeding the hungry issues. So there's some of the roles I take, yeah. So we started about 4 years ago, and it started to try and tackle 2 things. So the first one is there's a lot of food waste happening in the world. And it's not only a waste of food, but it also puts a burden, it puts pressure, it makes troubles for our environment and for our planet. So the more food we waste, the more problems we cause for our planet. And I can go into more detail on that. So we wanted to tackle the food waste issue. At the same time, we could see that there were a lot of people who are hungry. And it was set up right here in Kuala Lumpur 4 years ago by just a small group of people. And it's become bigger and bigger and bigger over the last 4 years. So the other issue we wanted to tackle was feeding the hungry. So the first people who started it up, they went to their local supermarket and they said, I can see you're throwing away all this food. You're throwing away these bananas, you're throwing away cans of food. Can we have them and we'll give them to some hungry people? Because they knew there was an orphanage just down the road, children without parents who were living in an orphanage, and the orphanage was always having to try and find enough food to feed the children. So these people thought, if we can rescue the food that's being thrown away, make sure it's still good, healthy food, it's not past its use by date, it's still in good condition, and it's safe to eat and healthy to eat, we can rescue that food and pass it on to the orphanage. So that's how we started. So now today, we have a warehouse, and we have 3 trucks, and we have contracts with lots of different supermarkets, food manufacturers and food wholesalers, people who make food, factories, people who sell food from local sources and also food from overseas sources. And for lots of different reasons, some of that food they throw away. They throw it away every week, and it just goes to landfill. When it goes to landfill, it just into the rubbish dump out in the country, the landfill. And when it goes there, it rots down and it releases greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, methane. which of course causes problems with our climate, and then we end up with climate change problems. So we thought if we can rescue some of that food, and they might be throwing it away because it's only got 3 months left on its use-by date, or maybe they've got a new line and a new branding and a new logo, so they're throwing away the old packages, or they've discovered the label is printed incorrectly. It says it's 2% fat, but it's really 3% fat. Lots of different reasons. And so if we can persuade them to give that food to us, which is what we do now, we can then pass it on to the hungry. So we work with lots of supermarkets, and every week, every day of the week, we're picking up food from supermarkets like Jaya Grocer and Cold Storage and all the big supermarkets, from food manufacturers like Nestle and Dutch Lady, Unilever, people like that. And we collect food, and then we give it out every week. And Lemba Pantai that we work with every week, and then we have some others that we work with occasionally. So we will give food to them every week. We also work with about 55 other charities. And these are people like, remember I was talking about the orphanages. So some of them are orphanages, homes for children. Some of them are homes for elderly people who can't look after themselves, for people who have disabilities and can't look after themselves. We work with refugee communities, with homeless people, Orang Asli communities, all these different charities. So we can supply food to those charities, and they can then feed those people. And we can do that every week. So that's our operation at the moment. And we have, as I said, we have about 5 people who get paid a small wage, and then we have about, on average, before the MCO, about 150 volunteers every week who would work with us. And they work in different ways. They might be like me and work in the education area, or they might go into the warehouse and sort out food and pack boxes ready for the charities. Or they might work on our corporate team, and they'll talk to corporations and say, please support us, give us money, or run activities to do fundraising for us. Yes. So yes, it's made a big change. So the government, when the lockdown first happened in March, and the government said, volunteers are not allowed to work. You're only allowed to have a core team. 3 or 4 people only can work. And you must have certain SOPs, standard operating procedures, all to do with washing hands, gloves, masks, social distance, all the same messages that we get. And we had to, for instance, we couldn't go and collect fresh fruit and vegetables from the big wholesale wet markets anymore, because there was a lot of virus in the wholesale wet markets. So we were not allowed to go in there anymore. It was too dangerous for us to go in there. So it's restricted the number of places we can pick up food, and therefore we don't get as much food every week, and therefore we can't feed as many people every week. So instead of feeding 55 charities, we've been looking after about 40 charities while the lockdown is on. Normally, before the lockdown, we were able to pick up on average 14 tons of food every week, and give out 14 tons of food. Now, while the lockdown's been on, we've done about probably 5 tons a week. So it's about a third. So it's not nearly as much food. And of course, at the same time, all the people who are poor, who are hungry, are getting bigger and bigger in number, because people are not working and people don't have much money at the moment because of that. So we get more and more people asking for food, just at the time when we can't deliver as much as we used to be able to. Yeah, so every organization, be it a charity or a PPR committee, every one of those, we have to have a contract with. We draw up a contract. So we go in and we talk to them and we say, what is your community? What is that? What are their needs? What do they eat? We have to make sure we're giving them the right sort of food, depending on what sort of community they are. Whether they're old people will change what we give them. Old people will change what we give them. Whether they're very young people will change what we give them. So we have to assess that. We have to look also, before we start working with them, do they have a kitchen? What's their food storage? If we give them frozen food, have they got somewhere to store frozen food? If we give them food that needs refrigeration, do they have refrigeration? because we have to make sure when we're dealing with food that it's safe. So we have to make sure that the food we give them is safely given to their clients. So we have a contract with everyone and make sure that there is food safety, that we're giving the right foods. We have a team of volunteers called our charity liaison team, our charity team. And that is, each volunteer will have 1 or 2 or 3 charities that they work with all the time, and they will be ringing them up or WhatsApping and saying, we've got lots of UHT milk this week, do you want some UHT milk? Or we've got lots of cooking oil this week, do you need some cooking oil? How much do you need? And organising the delivery for each week. We don't discriminate, when we're choosing, we don't discriminate on the basis of race or gender, whether they're male or female, or age, whether they're old or young, whether they're, the only thing we look at is how needy are they? How much need do they have? Some people can get help from other places. We don't need to help them as much. Some people cannot get any help from other places. They need us urgently. And then we have to say, how much can we help them, and can we keep doing it every week? It's no use us helping them one week and not being able to help them the next week. They still need to eat every week, you know. So yeah, that's kind of the process with our charities. Yeah. Yeah, so before the pandemic, we would pick up we'd pick up fruit and vegetables from the wholesale wet market, the Pasar Barong at Selayang. We'd pick up from there 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And then also on those days, plus Tuesday and Thursday, we would pick up from different supermarkets. So from each supermarket, we would pick up once a week. And then the food manufacturers, the factories or the wholesalers are not regular pickups. They will contact us when they have a particular thing they want picked up. So that might be just once a month, or it could be twice in a week, or it could be once every 6 months. It just changes all the time. So we just have to have
constant suppliers.
Yeah. And with food, especially with things like fresh fruit and vegetables, you have to pass it on within 24 hours if it's still going to be good quality. So on the Monday, we would pick up from the Pasar Barong, the wholesale wet market, in the afternoon at the end of their trading day, and take it straight to the PPR at Gombak and distribute it. On Friday, we would do the same for the PPR at Lembah Pantai. On Wednesday, we would bring all the fresh fruit and vegetables back to our warehouse, and we would sort through it and package it up in crates for each individual charity. So we'd end up with 55 different lots of crates, and then they would be delivered either by our truck or by volunteers who would come in their cars, pick up what was needed for their charity and deliver it to that particular charity on the Thursday morning. Yeah, so we're working Monday to Friday every week, picking up. Now, since the pandemic started, that schedule is changing every week now. It just depends so much on what we can organise every single week. We're kind of making it up as we go along. So I arrived in Malaysia. I come from Australia. You might have picked up my accent. I arrived with my wife last January last year, the beginning of last year. She is a high school teacher, and she's started a job at the Australian International School teaching in the school. She's teaching mathematics. So I came over knowing that I wasn't working here, but that I wanted to do some sort of volunteer work. And I heard about the Lost Food Project through Facebook, actually, I found out. And I read about it, and I thought, yes, this is the sort of organisation I'd like to do some volunteering with. So I started about March last year, so just a bit over a year I've been working, yeah. And it's different every week. Every week, you know, sometimes you might have 3 places or 4 places you need to go to do presentation or to do information sharing. Some weeks you'll have nothing. Some weeks will be lots of emails, some weeks lots of WhatsApping. It's all different. Yeah. Well, it's always interesting, always changing. So when I was in Australia, I'd done some volunteering. I'd done some caring for elderly people, old people who needed help in their own homes. So I did some volunteering where I went and I helped them do their shopping, or helped clean their house, or took them to the doctor, or I would help fix up their garden. I did a lot of gardening work because people liked their gardens. And I found that very rewarding. I enjoyed it, and I felt it was useful. I think mostly I've got to the stage in my life, because I'm 61 years old now, and after a long life of working, I don't need to earn as much money as I used to, because I've saved up money, so I can live off the money I've saved up, and my wife is working. So I can support her and make sure that she can do her work well, and I do all the cooking and the cleaning and the shopping and the laundry and all of that. So I look after her, but I still have time left over, of course. So I wanted to do something useful while I was here in Malaysia, something that was going to give back to other human beings and be helpful to them. And I liked this organization because it tries to make our planet a better place for the future, for people of your generation and the generations that come after you. And if we can cut down on food waste, we can help the planet. And I also I liked it because it was very directly helping people in my local area, right here in the Klang Valley in Kuala Lumpur, who are hungry and needy and need support to live a happier and healthier life. So it's about my values, I guess, as a human being, what's important to me, and those things are important to me. And I have the time and the opportunity at this point in my life to spend time and use my talents towards that. Yeah. The thing I really like about this particular job, the education area, is working with children, working with young people. Because when you go into a school and you have a class, so for instance, I went to an international school just before the pandemic started. Oops, sorry. I went to an international school and I did a session with a group of class 5. So they were 10 years old. And they were so full of possibility, I guess is the word. They were very open to ideas, to new ideas. And you can say to them, these are some things we can change in our life. We can do really simple things like finish our plate, like take a shopping bag with us rather than taking a plastic bag every time that we're going to throw away, like use a reusable water bottle. Really simple ideas that we share with them about things they can do to help cut down on food waste and look after our planet. And they're so open to that and so excited to learn these ideas and to build on those that you think, okay, I have an opportunity to help a generation start new behaviors, different behaviors, better behaviors. If I go and talk to somebody who's 40 years old or 50 years old, it's much, much harder to convince them because
yes, they are usually the way.
They have the habits of a lifetime, you know, and it's really much harder to change people and to make suggestions and say you have choices. So I love the fact going in and working with young people because you feel like you're making a big difference. Spread the message. You know, if I am sitting here and sharing a message with 3 people, each of you can share the message with 3 people, then we have 9 people. Each of them share the message with 3 people, we have 27 people. You know, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, it's important what government says and what government does in terms of setting policies, but it's also very important what we do from the bottom up, you know, at the grassroots level to make changes and to think about what sort of world and what sort of future we want. And you can share that with your family and share that with your friends.